Today we're going to talk about extinction. Extinction can be caused by different environmental factors, and if species do not have, or if populations of species do not have adaptations that equip them to survive, they will eventually die out. If the conditions are changing more quickly than the species can evolve, they will eventually go extinct. Currently, 99.9% of species that have existed on Earth are presently extinct. There have been 5 main mass extinctions before now, and 7 out of 10 biologists currently say that we're amidst our 6th mass extinction on Earth, led by humans. It is important to note the variation in populations when looking at the reasons why extinctions may occur. If there is very limited variation, and there are a few differences amongst a population, that population is going to be more prone to going extinct. Variation can be caused by 2 different things. One of the first things that can cause variation is sexual reproduction. So the combination of genes from a male and female to create a baby that has 23 chromosomes coming from the father and 23 from the mother. A second cause of variation can be mutations into the DNA strand. So if we're looking at the DNA strand here, as the DNA is transcribed and translated, which we'll get to later in this year, there can be different mistakes that can be made. This frame shift mutation down here changes the entire sequence of DNA and thus can change the entire protein that's being created. Looking at the bottom right-hand side, we have 5 different variations of the same species of rabbit. These different variations, as we talked about before in class, can allow these rabbits to be more fit in certain environments. Without this variation, different rabbits would only be fit for certain environments. If all the rabbits were brown, for instance, they would only be fit for that soil environment. Different environmental changes can cause the extinction of different species and populations of species. For example, the picture on the top right demonstrates climate change and how many species of organisms are now going extinct because of the change in our global climate. Continental drift, and as we talked about before, Pangea, can cause species to go extinct and also cause even more biodiversity or difference in the types of species created as they adapt to their new habitats. Habitat destruction, mainly led by humans, can also cause an increase in extinction rate in certain organisms. As we begin to look at how the environment can affect certain populations, you're looking specifically at genetic drift, or the random increases or decreases of alleles. For example, looking at the bugs on the right-hand or on the left-hand picture, we have a population that has variation, so we have our brown bugs and our green bugs, but as time goes on, you can tell that the alleles shift to favor the brown bugs over the green bugs because the green bugs are easier to see. The selecting agent of the environment is narrowing that population down to only the color that is selected for in that environment. The example on the right-hand side is the same with the rabbits, looking at the brown rabbits and the white rabbits to see which one is better adept for that environment, and you can see the increase of genes of the brown bunny. When looking at the rate of evolution in populations, it's important to note a couple factors. Populations that are small in size, have very little variation, reproduce quickly, and have a continuously changing environment are going to be evolving and be affected more strongly by natural selection. Populations that have a large population size, lots of variation, and a slow reproductive rate with a stable environment are going to evolve less quickly. For example, if you're looking at organisms that are asexual and reproduce at a very quick rate like bacteria, those organisms are going to be able to evolve over the rate of even just 25 to 40 years. Like we looked at in the antibiotic resistance lab, the bacteria was able to evolve and create a resistance to antibiotics very quickly because it had a fast reproductive rate and a changing environment. If you're looking at a population that is incredibly small and you isolate that population, there's going to be a higher rate of that population being affected by natural selection and even potentially going extinct. So populations that have very little variation, for example, if you took 3 types of dogs, like a tiny dog, a husky, and a short hairless dog, and put them into Alaska, because there's very limited variation in that population, that population of dogs is going to very quickly evolve towards having more dogs that are hairy because of the lack of variation. If you had lots of variation in the gene pool and lots of different types of dogs that you dropped off in Alaska, they would evolve at a much slower rate because the continuous combination of genes between the different dogs would be possible. Looking at this question here, which species is more likely to have the fastest rate of evolution? Make sure to back up your answer in your notes. For causes of extinction, there have been multiple causes of extinction in the past 4.6 billion years. For the dinosaurs, the cause of extinction was an asteroid that hit the Earth 65 million years ago. There's evidence of this rate of this extinction because the high radium concentration in something called the KT level that wraps around the Earth. So when the asteroid hit the Earth, it created this dust that was then laid down in the sedimentary rock. So if you dig down into the ground, you're actually able to see evidence of this KT layer, of this irradium concentration in the rock underneath the ground. Other causes, like we talked about before, are global warming, habitat destruction, disease, and also the change in sea levels. Evidence of extinction can be used, you can use the fossil record, also analysis of strata and the elements, so looking at the asteroid components that make up these levels of strata. Additionally, scientists can look at the impact crater, so this picture here on the left-hand side shows the impact crater of where the asteroid hit 65 million years ago. And also population ecology. So just like we did using the computer simulation, scientists can look at current levels of endangered species and the rate at which they're reproducing to predict extinction levels and also to predict which organisms are endangered. It's important to see when looking at this slide, the diagram on the left-hand side shows the extinction rate. Like mentioned at the beginning of this video, there have been 5 major mass extinctions, and scientists currently believe that we're amidst the 6th mass extinction. Adaptive radiation is almost the plus side of extinction. So adaptive radiation is what happens when we have a rapid evolution of many species from a single ancestor. So if you have a certain species that's being introduced to an area with lots of diverse genetic or ecological conditions, they can very quickly adapt and evolve, especially if there's very little competition for different resources. 2 examples of this are the finches that Darwin studied in the Galapagos Islands, and also marsupial population in Australia. That's all for today. Make sure that you include a strife theme and questions in your notes, and you complete the research check.